All right, everyone, welcome back into another props video. Give me touching on the top prop bets for the Saturday slate. It's a small two-game slate. Let's go ahead and get into it. So it's going to be a small two-game slate, obviously, on the Saturday slate. We might have some decent prop bets to go in on, though. Let's start with the first game. It's the Steelers versus the Bengals. About a 2.5 point difference in favor of the Bengals, winning 37.8 right now is the average over and under. Looking at the injury report, the Bengals are actually kind of healthy, dare I say. Now, Jamar Chase is ruled out. Joe Burrow is ruled out, which is obviously huge. Don't get me wrong there. After that, though, good to go. Jake Browning's played well. T. Higgins looked good last week. Them shuffling the receivers is not a big difference from what we have seen. It's been T. Higgins being out. And then obviously the quarterback position, we have seen that for almost over a month now. And then for the Steelers, they are pretty banged up. Okay, obviously Kenny Pickett being out has really hurt that offense, which is kind of weird to say. You also have Mike Tomlin saying that they are going to switch things up on offense. They're not going to keep doing the same thing as they are on this losing streak. I don't know what that means, honestly, because they fired their offensive coordinator and then they actually got worse. And so who knows what that means? I would assume it means more targets to Deontay Johnson and also Jaylen Warren. Who knows? The move that he made was to start Mason Rudolph, though. So let's start out with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I do want to call out, we are getting some, I don't want to say good, like goblin prop bets, but I want to call this one for Deontay Johnson specifically. And then I'll get into the standard type just for what it's worth. Like, guys, mathematically, you should not be playing these. But all in all, with Deontay Johnson, with the goblin that we are getting here, this one has almost a 90% chance of hitting. If, let's say, you haven't used the Kevin Durant free square and you are just trying to get a good payout, like you're not exactly doubling up. And all in all, I wouldn't say doing this, but this one basically has a 90% chance of hitting. 90% chance for you to almost double up. I think most people would take that. All in all, I don't hate it. All in all, we shouldn't be using those. Let's go and take a peek at the standard prop bets that we are currently getting for the Saturday slate. We are going to see Mason Rudolph over rushing yards. If you guys want to use that, you can. You can see the average sportsbook line has it at 6. Underdog is putting it at 6.5. PrizePicks is putting it at 5.5. All in all, this is actually a decent bet, but all in all, I don't want to touch it. Not something that I love. From there, we do have to figure out what is going to happen for this Steelers receiving unit. And what I mean by that is you saw George Pickens really have a just a bad play, bad look. You had Jaylen Warren seemingly probably being able to get a touchdown or close to a touchdown if George Pickens makes a block. They just chose not to make a block. He said he didn't want to get injured. That to me was bogus. I wouldn't be surprised if they actually limit his snaps in this one just because of that, but they do need a win. So he's not gonna, it's not like they can just afford to sit him. Now I do want to point out Najee Harris did only play in 33% of the snaps and Jaylen Warren ended up playing in 68% of the snaps. Now I think we all know why that is. Okay. They're playing from behind that whole game. And when they're playing from behind, they're going to get Jaylen Warren more involved. And we saw that happen. Now, if you think the Steelers are going to be playing with the lead, Najee Harris over 12.5 rushing attempts is a great prop bet. Like, they weren't supposed to get blown out against New England, and they did. He still got 12 carries in that game. He still almost got the over there. All in all, that's not one I want to be going out of my way to target. It just isn't. I think that's kind of an ugly prop bet. And all in all, I do think Mike Tomlin saying that they're not going to continue to do the same stuff means that they're going to get Jaylen Warren more involved. So I'm hoping that we are getting some good Jaylen Warren props. And to me, I just want to search by Jaylen Warren right now because I think that's the best player in terms of the lines that we're going to get. So looking at right now, I was hoping we would get some receptions props. We're not, but we are getting rush attempts at 9.5. Again, he is someone that should get more involvement in this offense. So 9.5 rushing attempts, I think I'd be fine betting the over, especially just given the nature of them needing to get him more rushing attempts. Most of the times he is getting around 9 rushing attempts. So in this game, I do think he has a great chance to get that over. Then receiving yards as well. Like if he's going to be getting 6 targets, 5 targets, I do think he has a good chance to get the over receiving yards. Again, though, that was like a perfect game script for him against the Colts. Good matchup as well. And he didn't get that over. To me, that is a little bit concerning. But all in all, I do think he is someone that we could probably trust to have a solid game. Then we take a peek at kind of the rest of the prop bets that we were getting. I don't really love them. I do think Deontay Johnson's going to be involved in this game plan just because to me he is like their best offensive weapon. I think that's kind of clear. He only had 6 targets in the last game, did have a touchdown. He has had a touchdown in 3 straight games, which is kind of funny after the season he had last year. Rudolph to Trubisky, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think that's TBD there. Probably doesn't really matter, to be honest with you guys. But all in all, I still think he's going to get those targets that he has been getting. And all in all, I do think him getting, 85% of the snaps is what we're expecting in this game. So that to me is going to be intriguing. That to me is something I do want to chase. And to me, he's the one that I would want to attack, but we're not really getting that many good prop bets from, at least standard wise. 44.5 receiving yards, that's correct. So with that being said, I think we're good to just go in and switch up and get into the Cincinnati Bengals. So when we look at the Bengals, I do want to call it the snaps at running back. Joe Mixon played in 71% of the snaps. And I don't know about you guys, but when I was watching that game, it to me didn't feel like that. You had Chase Brown. He only played 17.4% of the snaps last week. I'm actually very shocked at that. And that's simply because when Chase Brown was on the field, he was getting the football. 10 opportunities in that game for the third straight week, basically on average. And so he has been looking great. I personally think he has looked better than Joe Mixon. They need to find the ways to get him the football. And all in all, they should be finding ways to get him the football. That being said, if Joe Mixon is going to be playing 71% of the snaps, albeit he might have been injured, but only getting 13 opportunities, that is crazy. And so to me, it is just such a difficult situation as to kind of predict what we should be doing at the running back spot there for the Bengals. And I'm actually curious. I just want to take a peek at the two props that we might be getting for Chase Brown and also Joe Mixon. So for Chase Brown, the only prop bets that we are getting are rush yards and receiving yards. If he's going to be getting 3 targets again, Chase Brown, and the way that they'll be using him is for like big splash plays like that, I could see myself betting the over. He has kind of proven that he's a good receiving back. And if you look at Jake Browning's like route trees that he's throwing to, it's low. It's a low average depth of target. And so it makes sense why someone like Chase Brown, who has kind of been a dynamic playmaker, could get the over receiving yards. That to me would be the bet I would want to go in on. And we can see as compared to Underdog and really the sportsbook, PrizePicks is definitely lower at 16.5. So I do think there's a slight edge there. That being said, Joe Mixon is also involved in the passing game. 18.5 receiving yards to me also seems low for him for the exact same reasons I just mentioned with Chase Brown. All in all, Joe Mixon is going to be on the field more. And all in all, he's probably not banged up in this game like he was last week where he's kind of stretching out. I think it was his hamstring. But yeah, both of them over receiving yards I'm actually kind of okay with. We probably would want to just choose one or the other. Obviously, Mixon's going to be on the field more, but to me, Chase Brown is someone that has earned himself more playing time. It shouldn't be this close. I mean, Joe Mixon up until last week, like I think we would have just been locking this one in. So yeah, I think I still want to go with that one for Joe Mixon over. Rush yards, Chase Brown, I don't think we need to touch. Rush yards for Joe Mixon, maybe there's a slight edge there. Again, if he's going to be playing 71% of the snaps, I do think that there is something there. From there, the rest of the Bengals, we know it's going to be T. Higgins heavily featured, okay? We also know that's going to be Tyler Boyd heavily featured. The one player that I'm getting so sick of in terms of not getting snaps is actually Tanner Hudson, guys. Tanner Hudson, only 36.2% of the snaps. He, like, again, that's one of those situations where if you didn't look at the snaps and you just looked at his opportunities that he has been getting, his production that he's had on the field, you would have thought that he was getting 60% of the snaps. 5 targets last week, 9.9 DraftKings points, 49 receiving yards. Like, it is just crazy how well he's been playing to only be getting that many snaps. I mean, that is just shocking to me. I do want to call it the other snaps for receivers, with Jamar Chase out. I do think it's going to be Trenton Irwin leading the way there, snap counts in terms of like increased production. We saw this once before or a few times before when T. Higgins was out. I mean, there's a direct correlation. T. Higgins went out, Trenton Irwin instantly went into kind of the slot. And so I'm expecting that again. Don't be surprised though if the rookie gets more snaps as well. He should probably get around, I would say 40% of the snaps in this one. So those players could definitely be some players that we're looking at. All in all, let's go ahead and take a peek at the rest of the prop bets that we are getting for the Cincinnati Bengals, seeing if there are any that are popping up. And I will say this first one that we are getting for Jake Browning to me is somewhat interesting. 31.5 passing attempts, because we can see those pass attempts have kind of been there. The question or the concern would be this game blowing out, would be Mason Rudolph having like a couple of pick sixes or, something of that nature where the Bengals have some points in which their offense isn't on the field or just some points from having a short field. But all in all, I do think he has a good chance to get the over pass attempts here. Like, this game total is not the highest, and they probably will try to rush the football. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think they're exactly going to be able to too much, because I think the Steelers are going to probably sell out to try to stop the run, with Jamar Chase out. So I don't mind that one. We see completions at 21.5. Again, that's a decent one there. Tyler Boyd, 3.5 receptions. The under is being favorited there, guys. To me, that's going to be a good prop bet to bet the over on any of the sports books. Okay. 5 targets in that game. And if you look at kind of the games without T. Higgins, he was very productive in those games. And again, with Jamar Chase out, I'm kind of expecting him to have a good game now. Trenton Irwin, we see receiving yards 15.5. We could potentially be looking at that. Yeah, let's actually just take a peek at that. Because again, in week 10, 11, 12, and then week 5, T. Higgins was out. And we saw Trenton Irwin play 75% of the snaps and then like 80 to 90% of the snaps in the other week. So I do think that there's going to be something there. All right, so week 10, 54 yards. Week 11, 36 yards. Week 12, 25 yards. So 3 for 3 thus far, given the line that we currently have. And then against Arizona, really crushed it in terms of reception. So yeah, it is a bet on him getting the snaps and not the rookie receiver who I do like, who they liked in the preseason. But all in all, I do feel like that's a pretty good line that we are getting there. And if you don't want to do Tyler Boyd receptions, his receiving yards also seems pretty low to me. Like, it is going to be a lot of 3 receiver sets. Don't get me wrong. T. Higgins is going to be involved. I get that. And also Tanner Hudson probably will be involved as well. But I think we are getting some pretty good edges on Trenton Irwin and also Tyler Boyd receiving yards. So now let's go ahead and get on into the second game tonight, or on the Saturday slate. Chargers are 12.5-point dogs against the Buffalo Bills. 43.8 is going to be the over and under on average. Looking at the injuries, obviously we know the Chargers are pretty banged up. Keenan Allen is out. That's not good. Justin Herbert is out. That's not good. Austin Eckler, really don't know what to do with him. All difficult stuff. Nick Vannett could be back, which maybe will eat into a little bit of the tight end snaps. I doubt it. Looking at the Bills, relatively speaking, good to go. I don't think we're too worried about the injuries that are at hand for the Buffalo Bills. So I do want to start out with the Chargers here, guys, because I do think that there is maybe some potential edges here. Joshua Palmer was supposed to be limited in that game, and he played in 71.4% of the snaps. And he also played in 71.4% of the snaps in a game that was clearly a blowout. This game probably will be a blowout as well, but all in all, if he's going to be getting a lot of snaps like he is, like, that was the concern with him. He ended up being some pretty good free squares because we bet on him getting the snaps, and it made sense. He looks good, and so I expect that workload to be there for him again. Looking at that as well, we got Johnston, who played pretty well. I mean, Johnston, I dare say, has looked good the last 2 weeks. And guys, I didn't mention the weather in that game. I don't look at weather until the morning of. More times than not, is kind of a moot point. But by all means, take a look at the weather before you place your bets. Okay, like, I do think I think that matters, and it's just one of those things that before you place a bet, especially for that or the game, take a peek at the weather. If you're concerned by it, maybe don't place it. Okay, yeah, looking at it, guys, like, he has played pretty well the last 2 weeks. I don't want to say very impressive, but really you take away his drops and turn those into catches. And I know you can't really do that, but if you did that, I think a lot of people would be hyped about the solid play that Johnston has had. It's just his drops have been at alarmingly bad times as well, and they've been big plays. But granted, he's getting open for them, right? Like, there is something there. Gerald Everett got 62% of the snaps. I think we're expecting that again. Alex Erickson, like, it was shocking, but also not shocking that, since he has been with the team and active with the team, been getting about 50% of the snaps, and obviously they've been banged up. I kind of expect that to continue because obviously they don't exactly love what they have in Jalen Guyett, and they also just don't have anyone else at receiver. So definitely interesting there. I do want to point out the running back split. Eckler, 38%. Spiller, 38%. Joshua Kelly, 24%. So I don't know if you guys were watching that game, but I thought Isaiah Spiller looked actually pretty darn good, looked kind of electric. And so it really doesn't make sense to get Eckler that much work. And don't get me wrong, like 2 weeks ago, I thought he had looked the best that he had. I thought he actually looked healthy, and he had that again last week. Like, the burst was there, the quick twitch was there that we hadn't seen really for a majority of the season since he returned from injury. So that was nice to see. He does seem to be healthy. I think he has that going for him. So if he has a big game, I don't think I'd be shocked by it, but I don't think I really want to go out of my way to target it. I do want to point out though that with Keenan Allen out, I do expect his targets to continue to be high. And so I'm very curious if we get his receptions even at 4 or 3.5. I do think I want to be betting the over, even if he's only going to be getting us 38% of snaps, because when he's on the field, he's going to get some targets. So let's take a peek at this team. And so actually the first prop bet that we're getting that's going to be seemingly a good prop bet is going to be Joshua Palmer for over 3.5 receptions. Again, he played in 71% of the snaps last week, while being kind of expected to be limited. Okay, 4 receptions in that game, 4 targets. Again, if he's going to be playing a little bit more in this game, that to me is going to be encouraging. I think he has a great chance to get over 5 targets in this game. Thus, I do think getting over 3.5 receptions, I can get behind that. 53% chance that obviously we don't love that, but all in all, I think that's a good one. Johnston for over 27.5 receiving yards. I could also get behind that as well. Like, they're going to be playing from behind most likely. We know that. They're probably going to have some soft coverage. And so I think there's a good chance that he does get some receptions in this game, get some receiving yards. You know, he had a good game last week, but only 23 receiving yards. So kind of weird there. From there, Eckler, I think his receiving yards is correct. Rush attempts, I don't want to touch. Like if I'm doing an Austin Eckler prop, it'd be over 3.5 receptions if that's the line, and I'd be fine betting it at 4. I do want to take a peek at the Easton Stick lines that we were getting, because really, guys, like I felt bad for Easton Stick. I think anyone that didn't watch the game probably thought he played a much worse game than he did. No, he played fine. Like a lot of the mistakes that occurred offensively were really not his fault. You know, you had a defender make a great play where Stick was just throwing where the read was. So all in all, I thought he played well. I thought he played as expected, really. And so I think we're getting some pretty good lines on him. Like maybe rush yards you could do, maybe pass attempts, maybe pass completions. All in all, I think the lines that we're getting on Easton Stick are all too low. Like pass completions, I'd be fine with. Pass attempts, I'd also probably be fine with. The issue that we have is that the Chargers defense is bad against the run. And with James Cook looking as good as he has, I could see the Chargers just kind of saying, or the Bills just kind of saying, we're going to run it a bunch with James Cook, kill the clock, get out of here with a win. And I'm kind of expecting that. But all in all, you look at that game, 2 fumbles lost, an INT. Like there's just some series that were just not there for them. And so there's just not as many plays as you would have typically in a game that's that lopsided. And so to me, I actually think there's a good chance that he gets over the pass completions and also over the pass attempts, given the game script that we have. That would also correlate well with Joshua Palmer over reception. So maybe the completions, again, I don't think he looked terrible. If you guys did, obviously don't need to make that bet. Let's go ahead and move on then into the Buffalo Bills. So before I get into it, guys, I do want to call, I'm probably going to be a little bit biased with what I want out of James Cook. I do think he's going to have a massive game, but I'm also hoping that he has a massive game. This is currently my best ball draft I think that's left. This is for the Millie Maker contest. So if my fingers are really crossed that this one can advance, because you know it could be in for a huge payday, especially if Keenan Allen comes back next week, especially if Joshua Jacobs plays, especially if Tyreek Hill plays this week. Only 8% own it to advance, so I like that. Obviously, I need Jordan Love to have a good game. My fingers are crossed there, and again, maybe I'm a little bit biased with Jaylen Warren as well. I was kind of talking him up. Just want to toss it out there before I get into loving me some James, but also wish me luck. So yes, get into the Bills. I do want to just start out with James Cook in this one. So James Cook rush yards 99.5 is going to be the demon prop, and I am including that just out of curiosity. Not a good bet by all means. I just want to point that out. If we just look at standard though, I do think the 67.5 rush yards is something that's interesting. The receiving yards is also interesting. Like I would argue the reason why the Bills have been playing as well as they have been recently is, well, one, Dawson Knox being back in a weird way has helped. Also helped the run game. And James Cook has benefited from that. The issue that we have is that James Cook really has not been playing a lot of snaps, even dominating last week. And I know it was a higher scoring game and whatnot. The game was kind of out of hand early, and I get that, okay? He only played 55% of the snaps while just being a pure stud. Now, to me, I am expecting basically the exact same game. Really, like this is such a great matchup for them. And if you look at their past kind of games, KC, more difficult matchup. Philly, difficult matchup for opposing running backs. The Jets, really difficult matchup for running backs. Denver, obviously easy matchup. But really, over the past month or so, 5 weeks, he has been able to do well in situations that weren't supposed to be good situations. Dallas was the best run defense in the league up until that point. So now you get one of the easiest matchups, if not the easiest matchup recently, against the Chargers. And to me, that's highly intriguing. And so 67.5 rush yards. Again, we're kind of worried about the workload. The rush attempts is set at 15. And if he gets 15 rush attempts, I think there's a great chance he gets over 67.5 rush yards. And honestly, guys, that I wouldn't suggest doing the demon bet at 99.9 rush yards or whatever it was, but I could see him getting the over in this game script. They're heavily favored to win. I think if that's happening, he's going to be part of the reason as to why. Let's go ahead and move on into some other prop bets that we're getting, maybe without James Cook in that sample. We'll do that. And so looking at from there, Josh Allen, kind of expected to throw an INT in this game, about a 57 or 52.7% chance, about a 53 if you round up percent chance for that to happen. I don't know if I want to touch that. That has actually come down as the week has progressed. So all in all, to me, that's probably a little bit too thin. From there, I really actually don't like any of the other props that we are getting in this game. Like, to me, they're all too thin. Like, it's really James Cook. And so I do want to call it that we are getting some okay tackles and assist props, but all in all, those are probably ones that we just don't need to touch either. Like 53% chance for those ones to hit. Like, it is a very tight pool for this Saturday slate. So we're going to have to do some probably uncomfortable bets, like some bets that we typically wouldn't make if it wasn't like a game that we were just trying to target or a slate that we were trying to target. Do want to take a quick peek at underdog, seeing if we're getting any good prop bets there, better prop bets there. Jake Browning, rush yards, you could do. James Cook, receiving yards, pretty good likelihood for that data, actually. The average sportsbook line has it at 23 or 24.3. If you're betting the over rush yard or receiving yards for James Cook, you'd want to do it there. And then from there, again, probably a little bit too thin. So kind of a weird slate. Let's give you guys a bet of the day. It'll be on PrizePicks. Won't love it. And if you guys don't want to go crazy with it, I get it. It's a tight slip. So to me, these are going to be the best bets that we are getting for the Saturday slate right now. Again, I do think James Cook has a really great chance to have another good game. The one concern is that this game blowing out too fast, but at the same time, he would be part of the reason as to why. And I do love the fact that we could probably run out some sort of game stack there. Like Easton Stick would have to throw the football a lot more. Obviously, if James Cook is really having a great day rushing the football, that's going to mean that the Bills are playing with the lead pretty much. Joshua Palmer, I was trying to decide whether I wanted to do like as over receiving yards or receptions. All in all, it probably doesn't matter. I think he's a great chance to get over that. That was really one of the better bets that we had in the day. I think Easton Stick playing from behind is going to have a great chance to get over his passing yards there again. I don't think he looked terrible. The offense looked terrible. The team looked disinterested. And because of that, I felt kind of bad for him, really, because he was set up to have a bad game. And it was nice to kind of see him bounce back, albeit the Raiders were not playing their best defense at the time, but still able to take advantage of it. And then looking at this, with looking at Jamar Chase not being there, I do expect Trenton Irwin and Tyler Boyd to see an increase in their usage. And then Joe Mixon, I was trying to decide between Chase Brown or Joe Mixon. All in all, Joe Mixon should be good to go in this game. And all in all, I do think he's going to still be involved in that short yards passing game that they've started to do a lot more. Jake Browning. Thus, I like the over receiving yards there for Joe Mixon. That's going to be all for today's video. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to give a like and subscribe. Also hit that notification bell so you're not missing out on any of this great content. I appreciate you guys being here. If you guys want access to the 95sports.com PrizePicks and Underdog cheat sheet, is available at 95sports.com for just $10 a month. Thanks for watching. Let's have a good slate. And as always, let's keep cashing.